It's up to you, New York, New York.
How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. On today's show, we're going to be speaking on my beloved New York Knicks failing to close the door on the defending world champion Boston Celtics. That series is now 3-2, and the Knicks are going to have to take care of business at home to avoid the very scary Game 7 in Boston. Knicks suffer their first loss of these playoffs on the road. Aaron Judge is awesome. Going to speak on that and explain why he is so damn good. I'm going to hit on the New York Giants schedule release, and we have two very famous baseball players who are now eligible to join the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. And I'm going to start it up there with that. Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson. Long time coming. And I've always stood firm on one thing. I felt that Shoeless Joe was the biggest Hall of Fame snub of all of them. And before anybody gets inducted, he needed to be back on the ballot. Of course, the very famous movie Field of Dreams chronicled this situation about the 1919 Black Sox scandal. And truth be told, most accounts of people who knew the player, the man, said that although he was aware of what was going on, he was not part of it. Now you fast forward to Pete Rose getting banned for life from Major League Baseball. At the time, with the Cincinnati Reds as a manager, he was fired and banished from baseball for betting on games for and against his club. About a year before Pete's passing, he wrote a heartfelt letter to Major League Baseball, showing the most contrition he ever has. But I felt that because of the weird nature of Rose's induction candidacy, the fact that he signed a paper that said that he would never be on the ballot made it easy for Major League Baseball to drag it that route. But because of the unprecedented situation posthumously, and also because I think that Major League Baseball knows that the fans really want this, it finally got done. I don't know if Shoeless Joe Jackson has, family that are pursuing this. I am curious to see where that goes on his end. But when you're talking about the all-time hits leader not being in the Hall of Fame, when you're talking about the all-time home runs leader, that would be Barry Bonds, not being in the Hall of Fame, when you're talking about a guy like Roger Clemens, who has so many Cy Young awards, not being in the Hall of Fame, when you talk about a guy like Alex Rodriguez, who's not in the Hall of Fame, and finished his career just shy of 700 home runs as a member of the New York Yankees at the end, there's a problem with the institution. Buster Olney made a good point, saying that when Pete Rose gets inducted, his suspension and his whole story should be included on his plaque. I have long said on my show, even going back to the original show, which was the Jordan Patrick show, when we spoke about this literal thing, Pete Rose. We talked about cheaters. We talked about AJ Hinch. We talked about the scandals involving Bill Belichick with the Patriots. Um, I believe that if you erase history completely, you have a very real chance of repeating that poor history. I think this is an opportunity for Major League Baseball to come honest and come to terms with the fact that something like the steroid era, for instance, literally saved the game. And what you should do is bring these players around, the ones that you feel are truly generationally great. Because a guy like Barry Bonds, a guy like Alex Rodriguez, although you could frown at their choices with the PEDs, quite frankly, neither of them truly needed it to be great. You want to put an asterisk next to Roger Maris because it took him more games in the regular season to break Babe Ruth's home run record, but yet you don't put an asterisk next to the steroid guys. You just pretend that they never existed, like the way WWE did with Chris Benoit. It doesn't work like that. I feel that the players that are still alive, that are willing to play ball, no pun intended, and talk to children about their transgressions, could go a really long and positive way about getting further away from the steroid era, but acknowledging the wrongs of their ways. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think Barry Bonds is going to sign up for that because Barry Bonds has never admitted to it, although there is overpowering evidence that he did use PEDs. But I do believe that you're going to have a decent amount of ball players that care about their legacy enough to want to be included in the Hall of Fame, that will talk to children, that will do their part in making it better. Now, as far as Pete Rose goes, I'm curious to see what his family thinks because I have mixed feelings about all of it. And I understand why he was suspended. I truly do. But one of my biggest issues with Major League Baseball for the longest time has been the hypocrisy in the institution. It took far too long to put the Negro League players on equal footing with the MLB players. It was never a choice for Negro League players to not be included in Major League Baseball. That's a victory that took far too long to happen for those men. But the reality is, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, Major League Baseball never cared about their issues with the steroid stuff until Congress got involved. And like I said before, a huge hypocrisy. And whether people want to admit it or not, when Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire had that historic home run battle, breaking records that were there forever, it saved the game because of the fact that so many people walked away from Major League Baseball after the 1994 season that was cut short and did not have a World Series. But, there's a lot of wrongs. Like I said it, Roger Maris died, but not recognized as the regular season home run leader for the American League or for Major League Baseball for that matter. Seeing Aaron Judge break the record recently brought Roger Maris back to relevancy, back to younger fans that maybe don't know the whole story. The movie 61 that Billy Crystal put together was phenomenal with Barry Pepper and Thomas Jane playing Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle, explaining to the viewers what it was like for Maris to go through all of those things because he was never the choice of the fans nor the media. Mickey Mantle was an American icon in addition to being a great ball player. But I see this as an opportunity for Major League Baseball to stop playing with people's intelligence. You can't banish the best of the best to suit a narrative. You put their transgressions on the plaques. You give them the choice. If they want to be part of this Hall of Fame, we expect you to be accountable for your mistakes, and we expect you to talk to kids. Talk to the next wave of kids coming up in this beautiful game. That's the way that you deal with it if you're me and if I'm running Major League Baseball. But I must admit, I was a little surprised to see that Rob Manfred lifted that ban. But I am happy because although I have plenty of mixed feelings about Pete Rose, at the end of the day, he was a Hall of Famer on the field long before he ever became a manager and long before he ever had the issues with gambling addiction. And while I'm on the topic, I also want to speak about certain players that were not steroid abusers. I love to point out Don Mattingly, and I will start with him. When I think that Don Mattingly had many, many seasons of getting overlooked and voted out over by Mark McGuire, a guy who was using steroids, perhaps we should look back at his candidacy. His New York counterpart, Keith Hernandez of the Mets and Cardinals. Maybe we should reopen his candidacy. Thurman Munson was one of the best players in all of Major League Baseball when he passed away. Multiple time World Series winner as well as a regular season MVP, a catcher who hit for average, the heart and soul of the New York Yankees, and the captain of the New York Yankees at the time of his death. Perhaps we should reopen that case on why Thurman belongs in the Hall. Guy like Curt Schilling, not the most popular opinions, maybe not even a very nice person. But once again, what he did in between the lines is Hall of Fame worthy. These are things that Major League Baseball needs to get busy with. But in closing on this topic, I am happy for the families of Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson, and 15 others. So we're going to see where that goes. Going to move this along to the NFL. My New York Giants inheriting the toughest schedule in the National Football League for the 2025 season. And I must admit, this schedule is quite brutal. Not an easy schedule by any means. And just the first month alone, very, very tough. Two divisional road games back to back, starting with the NFC runner ups, the Washington Commanders. Now, this is a game that I feel should be played every week one, given the fact that it's 9/11 week. And I think they should flip venues. I think one year it should be in East Rutherford and one year it should be in D.C. This year it is in D.C. Week two at the Dallas Cowboys. And for the home opener on Monday Night Football, week three, they welcome the Kansas City Chiefs. A much improved Charger team will be their opponent in week four. And then things don't really get much easier. You know, the Saints are in transition, but you play the Eagles twice in 3 weeks, mixed in between with the Denver Broncos. You have a perennial powerhouse that had an off year in the 49ers. You got the Packers and Lions on this schedule as well. And you got a Viking team that won 13 games last year and was in the mix for the final wild card. Actually, were the Vikings 14-win team last year? I take that back. They were a 14-win team last year. Um, Not an easy schedule, but off the rip, I believe that the New York Giants ceiling is 9 wins. The floor is 5. Just on some humble tip, and before anything else happens, I'm going to say that the New York Giants go 7-10 next year. And it's not about the record, so to speak. It's more about if the ownership feels that the team is heading in the right direction and they are improving. And I think that's what head coach Brian Dable, general manager Joe Shea need to show. According to most experts and analysts, the New York Giants had a phenomenal draft. And I think in free agency, they definitely did good with addressing certain needs, particularly Paulson Adebo, cornerback previously with the New Orleans Saints, and Javon Holland previously with the Miami Dolphins. He's a safety. I love the Cameron Scatabo pick. Jackson Dart, more than likely going to sit the majority of the year behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. I think year two is the year that you really see Dart. I think barring a Pro Bowl caliber, playoff caliber season, Russell Wilson is going to be one and done with these Giants. But I think this is the year where you're just trying to get back to credibility, being competitive, and just playing better football. I think year two is where the expectations start going up on being a playoff team. It goes without saying that the New York Giants, at least on paper, according to a lot of experts, are going to possibly have a top 10 defense, and it's going to be fueled by their front four. Dexter Lawrence gets some help at defensive tackle. They drafted Abdul Carter. You have three legitimate edge rushers. So the Giants should be much improved on defense. The question is, can the offense hold up their part of the bargain to keep the Giants in games? Because last season, the Giants lost a lot of games because their defense ultimately got tired and the offense was just that damn inefficient. Probably the worst Giants offense since the Joe Pisarcik era. But the NFC East in general, because of the fact that you have to play a really good West division in the AFC, a pretty good North division in the NFC, and you have to play each other. It's no surprise that the NFC East are among the teams that have the absolute toughest schedules. But that doesn't mean doom, so to speak, because you have to get through training camp, things of that nature. You have to see just where things go. So there's never a true guarantee that things are going to be as bad as they appear. Um, and, it's an opportunity as well. The Giants have historically played the Commanders well. Even going back to last year, they probably should have beat them in their first meeting if the Giants would have carried a healthy kicker. So I do believe that, the Dallas Cowboys, the Giants have closed the gap on them, a team that they haven't beaten 8 consecutive games. Philadelphia Eagles are the cream of the crop, and they have had an imposing advantage over the Giants for far too long. I don't necessarily expect that to change this year. But if the Giants could go 3-3 in their division, which I think is very feasible, that would be huge for the future. Last year, they pathetically went 0-6. December game against the Patriots will be interesting. Always fun when those two lock horns, as it's always a good game. But I'm optimistic with the Giants right now, and I definitely think that they're heading in the right direction. I'm going to move this along to the NBA for a moment. Boston Celtics staving off elimination yesterday. And I must admit, the Knicks, it was a strange one. First time in the series that they had the lead after the first quarter. The game was tied at halftime. And something that the Knicks have done well didn't go well this time around as they had a horrific third quarter. I have to question the referees with the quick fouls on Jalen Brunson. This is a guy who normally stays out of foul trouble, picking up 5 fouls in the third quarter, which was just remarkably strange. Karl Anthony Towns, yet again, in foul trouble. I'm going to give Karl at least half the blame because some of his fouls were just flat out foolish on his behalf. But as the Celtics go, I can't say I'm surprised with the effort, riding the emotional wave of losing their best player, Jason Tatum. And I don't expect a team that won a championship last year to go away quietly. Having said all that, I do expect the New York Knicks to take care of business in game 6 and close the door on this series. It would be one of the bigger disappointments because of the fact that Tatum is missing. But Boston has a damn good record without Tatum, so that needs to be accounted for. But one of the biggest reasons things didn't go right for the Knicks yesterday is the splits on Mikal Bridges. He is just a better player in Madison Square Garden. OG Anunoby, just ice cold from the field. I already mentioned the foul trouble for Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. I would have to say that the biggest positive in defeat was Mitchell Robinson shooting a perfect 6 for 6 from the line, which was quite shocking. And he looked locked in. Stephen A. Smith is over here saying that he's not concerned. I don't share those sentiments. Of course, I'm concerned. Even without Jason Tatum, the Boston Celtics are a top 5 team in this league. And it's not going to be easy putting them away. But their best chance is game 6. And I think the Knicks will do what they have to do. But I expect Boston to come out and play a strong game. New York Yankees, big victory yesterday as they improved to 4-2 on that West Coast trip. They got the day off today. Aaron Judge just coming up big yet again. He's having a season for the ages. And his numbers right now are looking better than his previous MVP years, as he is still hitting above 400, which is just remarkable. He gets the go ahead home run yesterday, late in the game, to beat a pretty good Seattle team. um, I don't know how long Aaron Judge is going to be able to put up these numbers in the average department, but a triple crown is definitely possible. More importantly, he is just everything the Yankees need him to be. I pitched recently on the show that I would be open to looking into it, moving on from Paul Goldschmidt, who's only a 1 year rental because of the emergence of Ben Rice. DJ LeMahieu, was nice to see him on the field yesterday as he played his first game of the season, replacing Oswaldo Cabrera, who sadly is going to be out for the year after injuring his ankle. But I'm not overly worried about this Yankee lineup. I am, however, worried about the middle relief. Luke Weaver has been phenomenal this season as he basically has won over the closing role, and there is no reason to think Devin Williams is getting it back. Best case scenario, you could hope that Devin Williams becomes a good setup man. That's not what the Yankees acquired him for. But the truth is, as long as the combo of Weaver and Williams works, it doesn't really matter who pitches the ninth or the eighth. It's about getting the final result, which is the 27th out. But Weaver has been amazing. Williams has drew concern that he might not be built to play in New York. But we're going to see where that plays out ultimately as the Yankees are starting to distance themselves quietly from the rest of the pack in the American League East. They are the only team that is over 500 in the American League East. The Blue Jays are right at 500, and the Boston Red Sox really got whipped by the Detroit Tigers. In the early going of the MLB season, I think the Detroit Tigers right now are the best team in the American League. National League is debatable, but I would say off the rip, it's between the Dodgers and the Mets. The Padres and Giants are going to be heard from. But right now, it's between the Dodgers and the Mets for who's the best team in the National League. And I've said it before, I praised the Mets on my show. Their starting pitching has just been such a pleasant surprise, and it's a big reason why they are in first place. And Juan Soto is slowly getting comfortable with being in Queens, being a part of that Met team. And I talked to my friend Richard Dorney recently. I think it's only a matter of time until Francisco Lindor, their shortstop, becomes the captain. And you can't say enough about Pete Alonso, what he's been able to do this year after not having the easiest time finding a solution at the negotiation table with the Mets. But I think Pete Alonso is playing himself into another long-term deal with the Mets, and I think he's going to be a Met for life. Until next time, I am Richie. I hope you enjoyed the show today. I'm a little bit in a blasé mood because I'm not going to lie. I am really pissed off with the performance of the New York Knicks yesterday. Not that they lost the way they lost. This has been one of the strangest series I've ever witnessed. The Knicks really stepped on their necks in game 4. They were running away with it before the horrific Jason Tatum injury. And I do want to take a moment to wish Jason Tatum the best in his recovery. He's unfortunately going to probably miss all of next season, but I'm glad that surgery was successful. It's not a fun surgery. And I think people need to lay off Jason Tatum questioning his desire and his toughness. Since he came into the NBA, he's missed the fewest games and he's played the most minutes. There's that. But Knicks got something to do, man. I will say this: if the Knicks don't finish this thing in 6, it might be one of the most dubious series losses in terms of blowing it since losing to Miami way back in the 90s when they were up 3-1. Have a great day, everyone, and announcements to come for our next show. Take care.